This idea is at least 275 years old, but moreover, it has been rediscovered at least 50 times that I can find. Often found in fields and by the people who would be very famous if I were to mention them, and they all call it something different. But I don't think that's why the idea is unknown. I think it's unknown because it goes against our cultural ideals, our personal experiences, and the way our brain works. What is the idea? The imagination isn't what we think, it's how we think. Now, I would like to go to the originators of this, and that would be David Hume and Immanuel Kant, who noted that the imagination is situated between our perception and our understanding. As Kant wrote in 1780 that we do not see the world the way it is. We see the world according to our instruments. This also could have been a quote from Daniel Kahneman's best-selling book Thinking Fast and Slow in 2011, which kind of gives you an idea of where we are with this. Well, first, most people wouldn't disagree with that. They will go, yeah, of course, I don't see as well as an eagle. I don't hear or smell as my dog does. But Kant and Kahneman are saying something much more important. They are saying that our instrument of perception are that something are going to be easy for us to perceive and understand. Some of them a bit difficult, and something of them are going to be impossible. It means the universe around us is hidden in the plain sight, we can't see it. And this might raise some disagreement, because you can see me standing up here, I can see you, we are in this room, and that's reality, right? And that's what real. And yet most of you, I'm sure, know about Piaget and his experiment, in which he would find out that young children saw a different world in different perspective. He would take a glass of water and he would take a container and he would pour the water into it, and then he asked the child which one has more, and the child would point out to this one and go, well, this one has more because it's higher, and of course higher is more, and as well as I know, more is better. So there were other experiments that are not as well as known. One of them involved a ball like this, so, and it's on a string, and if you spin it and let it go.
My question to you, will it go straight or will it curve or will it do something else? Think about that, because we are going to try it. Now it's a styrofoam, so mostly safe. So did it curve or did it go straight? Now if you saw it a curve, you are actually in a good company. Leonardo da Vinci saw it a curve. Galileo in his experiment saw it go straight and repeated that. I am afraid that's what the physics is. The thing is that why would we not see in that way? Well, it turns out in a cognitive science, we can see things we already know. We don't see things we don't know. And now how does that square with reality? If you are able to see the cards are the wrong colors, this is an homage to Jerome Bernal, who found that if it looks like a duck, if it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck. The thing is that we might not have that perception. Okay, it's a cheap trick, but this points out the mental process by which our mind, our imagination will pick out a bit of what we know and will fill in the rest of the picture. And the thing is that we do this by the way we dress. We are trying to suggest something about ourselves that's more than just the clothing. Now this idea is that some of the surface quality is going to reflect some inner essence. So shiny will mean new and something young will mean fresh. If a dog growls, it best left alone. The idea is that from that little part we spread out and we in the reality, this is the illusion of objectivity.
Well, in the field of anthropology, this is known as symphatic magic. And if you know anything about anthropologists, they study our prehistoric people or species. So these are the patterns and abilities that have been going for a very, very long time. And particularly one they call the law of similarity, which has to do with this, that like produces like, and like attracts like, and like cause like. Now you look across the other field, you see the same idea, how to think connects. In literal study, this is called metaphor. In social psychology, this is called stereotyping. In behavior economics, this is called representativeness. And in many other fields, something else. There are lots of jargons to go around. What we call it, that remind me. You know, that just like, I remember when, last week we had some kind of problem. If you begin to listen for this, you found that we use it particularly everywhere. This is one of the principal ways that we make the sense of the world. What you get to think that this is a duck. Is it the beat of the bill? Is it the yellow or the tail? Let's try something else here. What do you make of this? Now at this point, you may notice that you are resembling and trying to find out what it's like. Is it slipping back and forth? It gives you an actual experience of the movement that we don't even get very often. Well, is it, by the way, those of you are sure that it's a horse? What about the beak? Of course, you can resolve this problem by simply going and saying it's a toy. The thing is that we do this much more quickly the people and without a second thought. We elect leaders who are taller. We think attractive people are most honest and we pay them more and we forgive them more often. And if we find that people we don't like, to be polite about it, we generally lean into thinking they are bad or at least they are suspected. And again, we take some little bit of behavior and we build it out of traits. Oh, that person is shy. Oh, that person is competitive. Oh, that person, and so on and so on. Winner, loser, introvert, extrovert, athletic, uncoordinated, risk taker, wallflowers.
When we apply those to ourselves, it limits our identity. It limits what we might choose to do. When other people apply them to us, well then it influences how they process us and how they respond to us. And it taking something that ambiguous and open interpretation and grabbing a hold one part of it. This is natural ability and it happened very quickly and it happened very unconsciously. It also from the work of the Michel Foucault, a postmodernist, naturalizes our environment. Of course, being friends, we don't know what that means, but I tell you that where everything is taken as a real, that may or may not be, we made up. Let me give you an example, the zero. That's a lot of civilization didn't come with zero. They knew what nothing was. Okay, they had nada, jeep, so forth. But they didn't have something represent nothing. Why would you? It's like Seinfeld episode. The thing is that Fibonacci comes along, brings the zero to Europe in 12th century, and we have been finding it real, useful ever since then. So here's the question: is the zero natural? We discovered it, or is it act of imagination? Now the same skill, same ability are the basis of our creativity. That whenever something is invented or created, it is always what is this in terms of that. And Tesla, for example, figure out alternating current by watching the spinning of water spring. Picasso invented modern art by looking primitive art. And of course, famously Steve Jobs thought of the personal computer as an appliance. So it would seem like we would want to more imagination, we would want to unleash imagination. Except you can find a lot of places where imagination is unleashed. They are called conditioned under uncertainty. They are places where outcomes are not predictable, and those places which included gambling, athletic and investing. You see superstitious thought and behavior. You see elaborate ritual people go through, and we see there have talisman object and magical thinking. Michael Jordan, famous in Chicago, wore his basketball uniform under his NBA uniform his entire career.
A mathematical trader who made Black Swan famous Earlier, he found himself trying to go in the side door of the Chicago Board of Trade because the day before he had gone in through that door and made a lot of money. And in our times, more and more of us experience the world as uncertain, our career, our lives, and we see a rise in magical thinking, even to this point that it's institutionalized and become a profit center. So what to do? Well, we still have our rational thinking mind, what Kahneman and colleagues would call system 2. It's where we deliberately think things to our own voice. And this is a curious thing because we are thinking with our own voice and we are figuring things clearly out. So clearly, this is the most important mental ability we have. And it's obviously in control. You know, there are number of fields questioning that right now, and we get down to how do we control it? By language. Of course, each one of us grow up in a language. We learn words, and this word means that. We learn things like, well, a jet is called a jet because, well, it's super fast, fly at supersonic level of speed, it's cool, right? Well, at least you know, just seems like jet is a really good word for it, right? This thought leads us to the point where the word describes a thing beautifully. In fact, most of the times it seems that the word itself is the thing. The word is like the thing and the like attracts like. We are right back into the imagination. It turns out that our reasoning, our rationals are steeped in imagination.
I want to show you something. I have here some ordinary molten salt. What just happened? As you look at them on the table, easier willingness to use one or the other changed a little bit. And even though you laugh, and you would do it because you saw me, but you have reluctance suddenly, and that reluctance is signaling to you something about words, that words we have are the like things. And moreover, what we are getting here is that in a heartbeat, our imaginations make reality different. What I am getting here is that words don't reflect reality. Words are actually making things that they are in a certain sense. We go to the examples of how we think of ourselves, and the words like winner and loser, success and failure and so forth, we take that little bit of experience that we named and we put a whole reality around it, or somebody used that as well. So words evoke experiences, not realities. And if you listen to that and you understand it, then if you use a number of words, what will begin to emerge as we put those experiences together? What do we use? A story, another act of imaginations. Stories, by the way, are our first information storage and retrieval device, and they are also our favorite way of reasoning and favorite pastime. Let me demonstrate to you how quickly you can build a story. Some of you may be familiar with the studies that show whatever it is that you are doing now, in 10 years you are likely to be doing something else. So if you were to imagine that it's 10 years from now, what you are doing is that you are an architect. How do you make sense of that? What led up to that? You are noticing that your mind can very easily begin to pick out the episodes in your life and string them together. And thing is that if you think about that, if you share with that with friends, if you naturalize it, then it begins to feel real, and then it becomes something called fate or destiny. I hope in these and other ways I am pointing out the fundamental power and the pursuitiveness of this unconscious process, our imaginations, which is running all the time. This is where we turn to Albert Einstein. He noted that imagination is more important than knowledge. He went on it that passage to write that knowledge could be great, imagination greater.
Any knowledge we have came from something we previously imagined. Let me give you an example. Aristotle knew of the universe that in the heaven it was eternal and perfect, and on earth it was changing with time. Newton thought, well, if the heaven and earth have the same rules, then the laws of gravity would work everywhere. In other words, Newton had a leap of imagination. Now he was assisted in this by Galileo, because Galileo had seen that the moon was imperfect. Remember what Kant and Kahneman said, which is that we do not see the world the way it is. We see the world as our instrument allowed, and the instrument in this case was telescope. And so Newton was able to reimagine the universe, and the celestial mechanics was so successful that people took them as real and true. They neutralized until a couple centuries later, when our instrument became electric and it was worked out that the speed of light was constant, and then the universe needed to be reimagined. And then we have Einstein's theory of relativity. Marshall McLuhan wrote that our technology extends us, they extend our instrument, and so then we have a way of understanding what's happening. That is that technologies and science advance as our instrument exceed our imagination. And at that point, it's time to reimagine the world. I hope you see by now that imagination and knowledge are complement and complete each other. It's like they are in an endless dance in which imagination leads. Thank you.